Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Deity. In this video, I'm going to explain how to play the fire build in both Mythic Plus and Raid, as well as explain everything you need to know to play this build correctly. This video features one of 3 builds that are all part of my ultimate Enhanced Shaman guide for Dragonflight. So if you're brand new to Enhancement Shaman and want to learn the basic ability breakdowns, the talents, or even the other 2 builds, you can check out that playlist here. All of the builds that you'll see in this playlist have been very well tested and put together by both me and my enhancement friend Tiggle, and all of the builds compete very well against each other. So if you want to play a different build, feel free to check out the other videos. Before we begin, I wanted to mention that both I and Tiggle both stream on twitch.tv. You can find the links to our Twitch in the description below. Lastly, if you have any questions or want to keep up with Enhancement Shaman changes, feel free to join my Discord. There, you can come chat with me and other Enhancement Shaman enjoyers, and also opt in to be notified of any of those Enhancement Shaman changes. You can find the link to my Discord in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's get into the Enhancement Shaman fire build. This video is going to be split up into 2 sections. One section to cover the Mythic Plus variant, and one section to cover the Raid variant. So, if you want to look for something specific, I'll have timestamps set up so you can find what you need easily. First, we're going to cover the Mythic Plus variant. This is the talent setup you should be running. There are 2 very important talents on the left side of the tree that make this build work. The first important talent is Lava Burst, since taking this will give us 2 charges of Elemental Blast, and the second talent is Improved Lightning Bolt, which amps up the damage of our Lightning Bolt by 20%. Moving on to the enhancement tree, this is the main setup you want to run. We're essentially taking any talent involving Flame Shock or Lava Lash. We're of course taking the baseline ability of Lava Lash itself, then taking 2 points into Molten Assault so we get the Lava Lash cooldown reduced, and it also spreads our Flame Shock to 4 additional enemies. Next, we take Fire Nova and pair that with Swirling Maelstrom. Swirling Maelstrom will make it so any enemy that's erupted by our Fire Nova will grant us 1 Maelstrom weapon, up to a max of 6. After that, you want to put 2 points into Hot Hand, since this ability is where a lot of our damage is going to stem from. Both Hot Hand and the next talent, Ashen Catalyst, reduce the cooldown of Lava Lash and increase its damage greatly. And we finish off the right side with Lashing Flames. Lashing Flames makes our Lava Lash apply a debuff, which increases the tick damage of our Flame Shock. With this, we want to grab any Maelstrom related talents, as well as Sundering and Crash Lightning. The main star of the Maelstrom talents is Overwhelming Maelstrom, since Overwhelming Maelstrom will now allow us to spend up to 10 stacks of Maelstrom weapon on a spender, such as Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt, and Elemental Blast. This is essential for 2 reasons. The first reason why is because Enhancement Shaman currently has a lot of bloat when it comes to Maelstrom weapon, so this talent removes that bloat and allows us to get our important abilities on cooldown. The second reason is that it increases the maximum amount of damage that our spenders can deal, which allows us to hit harder than we normally can. Moving on, we want to talent into Storm's Wrath so we have access to Elemental Blast. Elemental Blast is where a lot of our single target damage is going to come from, since it becomes our primary Maelstrom spender in single target, as well as in packs of 3 mobs or less. Take 2 point in Elemental Weapons to increase our Fire, Frost, and Nature damage by 10%, and take 1 point into Crashing Storm, which causes our Chain Lightning to jump to 2 additional targets and our Crash Lightning to do additional damage. Next, we want to take Feral Spirits to give ourselves some added single target damage, as well as increase our Maelstrom generation. Next, we want to take 2 points into Witch Doctor's Ancestry. This talent increases our chance to gain Maelstrom weapon, and whenever we do gain Maelstrom weapon, our Feral Spirit's cooldown is reduced. The effectiveness of this talent is heavily influenced by the Feral Spirit's Maelstrom generation and by Swirling Maelstrom, which in turn allows us to spam Feral Spirits very often. The last talent in this row is Elemental Spirits. To apply Lashing Spirits causes our Feral Spirits to be imbued with either Fire, Frost, or Lightning effects. These elemental effects on your wolves end up buffing your damaging abilities of that same school type, meaning that if you spawn a Fire Wolf, your Flame Shock, Lava Lash, and Fire Nova will deal increased damage. The same concept is applied to the other 2 elements. Moving on, you want to take Primordial Wave. Using Primordial Wave will cause your next Lightning Bolt to hit all targets affected by your Flame Shock with increased damage. Take 2 points into Primal Maelstrom, which will allow your Primordial Wave to generate 10 stacks of Maelstrom weapon, and then finish off the talent tree with Splintered Elements. Splintered Elements makes it so that each enemy hit with Lightning Bolt after casting Primordial Wave will grant you 10% haste for 12 seconds. This effect maxes out at 60% haste. This haste buff contributes greatly to your Hot Hands procs and your Flame Shock tick rate. With all of these synergies combined, your fire damage and your Lightning Bolt damage is extremely high. Now that we've talked about talents, let's talk about how we use this setup to properly do damage. In Mythic Plus, you should always aim to do this opener on a pack. Begin the pull by applying your first Flame Shock and then following that up with Feral Spirits. Afterwards, you want to use Primordial Wave on a different target. Then spread the Primordial Wave Flame Shock with Lava Lash. Immediately follow that up with a 10 Maelstrom stack Lightning Bolt. Then proceed to erupt all enemies with Fire Nova. Then strike all enemies with Crash Lightning. From here on out, try your best to follow this priority list. Always keep Feral Spirits on cooldown. Try to reserve 1 Primordial Wave per pack, since the 45-second cooldown often lines up going from pack to pack. Always consume the Primordial Wave buff with a 10 stack Lightning Bolt, as doing otherwise will cause you to lose a significant amount of damage. From here on out, try to spam Lava Lash as much as you can, while also making sure to cast it on each enemy affected by your Flame Shock in order to apply Lashing Flames to each enemy. From here, only press Chain Lightning if you have 10 stacks of Maelstrom. Press Fire Nova whenever it's available. When Fire Nova is on cooldown, press Sun Sundering. When Sundering's on cooldown, press Crash Lightning. If none of those abilities are up, use Storm Strike. And if you're really hurting for buttons, use Flame Shock, then Frost Shock. And if at this point you have absolutely nothing else to press, spend whatever Maelstrom you have on Chain Lightning. The absolute important parts that you should take from this priority list is that you should always make sure your Flame Shock is on as many targets as possible. You're constantly Lava Lashing new targets. You're never overcapping on Maelstrom and always spending it at 10 stacks. And you're always making sure to consume your Primordial Wave buff with a 10 stack Lightning Bolt. With that covered, let's move on to the raid segment of this video. Here's the talent setup you should run for this build in raid. The build is pretty identical to what we were running in Mythic Plus. The only difference is that we're talenting out of Crashing Storms and Swirling Maelstrom, and instead talenting into Wind Fury Totem and Storm Blast, and also swapping Fire Nova for Hailstorm. We take Wind Fury Totem for the benefit of other melee in our raid. We take Storm Blast to make our filler Storm Strikes hit a little bit harder. If you want to hear the explanations for what all of these other talents do, you can go back to the Mythic Plus portion of this video. The build plays very similarly with some minor tweaks to the opener and to the priority list. The opener is a lot more simplified in single target. You always want to start the pull by putting your Wind Fury Totem down, then start the pull by using Feral Spirits, and immediately after casting Primordial Wave, and follow that up with a 10 stack Lightning Bolt. The last step of this opener is to use Lava Lash to apply Lashing Flames. From here on out, you want to follow this priority list. Always keep Feral Spirits on cooldown. If you're capped on Maelstrom, spend it using Elemental Blast. If you're capped on Maelstrom and don't have Elemental Blast, use Lightning Bolt. If you're not capped on Maelstrom, use Primordial Wave, and then immediately after consume it with the 10 stack Lightning Bolt. Keep Lava Lash on cooldown, keep Sundering on cooldown, keep Storm Strike on cooldown. If none of those previous abilities are up, use Fire Nova, use Frost Shock, Crash Lightning, and Flame Shock as absolute fillers. And if you have literally nothing else to press, use your 5 Maelstrom on an Elemental Blast or a Lightning Bolt. It's definitely a lot to keep track of, but if you follow that priority list the best you can, you will see amazing results in terms of damage. The stat priority for this build should be Haste Mastery, since Haste allows us to spam our abilities way more often and Mastery buffs our fire damage. Above all else though, you should always go for item level. Lastly, I wanted to talk about some pros and cons to running this build. The pros is that our damage is very streamlined and consistent. We have a very high amount of AoE burst damage, and between all three of our builds, this build is best suited to do damage in the 6 to 8 target range. There's really only one con to running this build, and that con is that this build is very hard to play in Mythic Plus. Mainly because you have to worry about min-maxing your resources, constantly applying and reapplying Lashing Flames to new targets, and making sure you're utilizing Primordial Wave effectively. And that's gonna wrap it up here. Feel free to follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/lfdeity. I stream fairly often, so if you want to come ask some questions or chill, I'll usually be there. And don't forget to join my Discord. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, please leave a like and comment and let me know what you think. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Good luck and have fun.